My session today is the top 5 sales and marketing fixes needed to accelerate revenue growth. And what I'm going to really do is highlight in some degree of detail uh, what you need to do and where the attention needs to be put in order to improve revenue at your portfolio companies across the board. So a real quick agenda around what I'm going to talk about is I want to talk about a revenue strategy, and I want to go into some degree of detail around what's included in that revenue strategy. There are far too many companies who simply say, well, I want to do 10% better than I did last year, or I want to do $5 million in revenue, and haven't really put the time or energy into thinking through the strategy behind that. Do they have the right investment? Do they have the right resources? Do they have enough leads? Do they have the right assets? I'm going to cover all of that in this first section. And then we're going to talk a little bit about what the right marketing and sales tactics are, because those are equally important. After the revenue strategy put together, when the revenue strategy is put together, you then have to move to picking the right marketing and sales tactics. That's not so easy. Today, there are so many things to choose from. How do we know which ones are the right ones? Which ones should go first? Which ones should go second? Which ones should be handled internally, externally? We're going to have a real lively conversation around picking the right marketing and sales tactics to deliver on your revenue strategy. And then after the tactics are selected, you have to plan and execute campaigns. So again, it's not just about deciding we want chat or deciding we want to run an email campaign, but what do those campaigns look like? How do we plan them? How do we execute them? How do we track them? That'll be a pretty interesting component of this conversation as well. As Eric mentioned, marketing is a science. Sales is more science than art than ever before. And while I've noticed a lot of people do have access to data, dashboards, and reports, the key takeaway is that you really want to find a way to uncover the insights that are buried in that data. So I'm going to give you some ideas and some suggestions and some proven practices on how you can potentially uncover those insights and use them to drive future action plans. And last but not least, I'm going to talk about technology. It is, in my opinion, probably close to impossible to execute the right kind of revenue growth strategy without technology. In our podcast yesterday, we had a question about the requirements of technology. I think it is. I'm going to go on record by saying if you want to drive revenue month over month, you're going to need a technology. You're going to need a tech stack. And I will cover how you need to think about the tech stack, build the tech stack, and align the tech stack to your revenue strategy. So we have a lot to cover here in a short amount of time. Again, really appreciate everyone's attendance or your viewing if you're watching this on demand. Thanks again, and let's get right into it. So when it comes to building a revenue strategy, I really would like everybody to start thinking about it more like a map. So if I said to all of you, hey, we're going to go to California later today, how the heck are we going to get there without a map? Sure, we know it's west and we could start walking west and eventually we might get there, but that's going to be a highly inefficient journey. If we had a map that told us exactly what streets to take and where there were food and lodging or places that we wanted to try to reroute around because maybe they were dangerous or hard to traverse, you were going to get to California in a much faster, more efficient way. And the same thing is going to apply here. You have to know where you are now to know where you're going. And there are some core practices that I'm going to share with you now that help us figure that out. One is baselining current performance. When I say know where you are now, I don't mean just knowing we did $10 million in revenue last year. I mean, you have to dig into that in a great degree of detail in terms of what produced that 10 million and how did we generate that $10 million. And if you want to do $15 million, then we have to agree on that desired performance. And we have to run some similar exercises to see what exactly is required to take us from 10 to $15 million. And it's not just hiring extra reps. You're going to need to align the investment and the timing around those expectations. If you have big, lofty goals, you're going to need a big, lofty budget. If you have very short timing, a very short window in which you want to produce results, you're going to need to invest a significant amount of money over that short period of time to rally the resources and get everything organized quickly again, that has to all be considered when you're thinking about your revenue strategy. And last but not least, there's a piece missing in many cases that have to do with your company's story. Words really matter. What you're saying about your company, what your salespeople are saying about your company, the stories that your marketing is telling, the stories that your website tells, the story that your reps are telling, the way customer service talks to clients and customers, like it matters, and it matters immensely. So we're going to talk about how we craft that too. I think this will be a really interesting 105 in this section of the event today. So I hope everybody enjoys it. The first thing I want to talk about, and this is directly related to setting some expectations and baselining performance, benchmarking performance, is I want to introduce you to this concept of a revenue cycle. The revenue cycle represents pretty much everything quantitatively to illustrate how you're going from the very earliest introduction of your company to a potential prospect to actually getting someone who has signed your paperwork and has become an actual customer or client of your business. It's a relatively complex multi-step process, and we've used these models that I'm going to walk you through here to illustrate them. Now, I talked about benchmarking current performance. So that's exactly what we did at the top, the lighter yellow model. In this particular example, you have a company that is currently getting 4,000 people to their website. Of the 4,000 people that come to their website, every month they're getting roughly 20 new contacts. Okay. Now, those are people that are filling out a form. They might not all be marketing qualified leads, as we'll see in a minute. In this case, 90% of them are marketing qualified leads. So you could have vendors who are trying to sell you something. You could have people who are applying for jobs. So not all new contacts are marketing qualified leads. Generally, it's a pretty high percentage of new contacts are marketing qualified leads. So we represent that with a 90% conversion rate. So the 4,000 visitors are currently producing around 18 marketing qualified leads a month. Now, by definition, a marketing qualified lead is not necessarily someone that is ready to talk to you, but it is someone that is interested in your services or your products. We're not offering free iPads, free iPhones, free trips to the Caribbean on your website. If you're doing this correctly, you're offering high value educational content, and that educational content is turning an anonymous visitor into a lead. Most of those people are going to be early buyer journey people. They're not ready to talk to a sales rep yet. They're still in research mode. And we're going to spend some time talking about the buyer journey so we can drill down on that. You can understand the difference of how your prospects are maneuvering their buyer journey and how it relates very importantly to your marketing. But roughly 20% of the people that do fill out forms on your website that are marketing qualified leads might actually be ready to talk to someone. We define a sales qualified lead as someone who wants to talk to you. So they will be asking to speak with you. They could be chatting, can I speak to a rep? They could be filling out a form, could I speak to a rep? They could be calling you, could I speak to a rep? But anyone that is a sales qualified lead is generally stepping up and asking to speak to you. Now, if we do a good job, most of them should be legit sales opportunities, but the sales opportunity definition is really falls on the salesperson's plate. This is typically where the prospect is transitioned from marketing to sales. So just because they want to talk to you doesn't mean that they're going to be a legitimate sales opportunity. They have to have the budget. They have to have the pain. They have to be a good fit. They have to be the right person. So there's a lot of qualification components that sales reps typically go through to decide if a sales qualified lead is a sales opportunity. Again, if we're doing a good job, that should be a high percentage. In this case, 3 out of 4 sales qualified leads are actually sales opportunities. So that's pretty good. Now, again, when sales reps start talking to prospects, they don't all go to contract stage. In this case, 66% of them, or 2 out of 3, are going to contract stage, but not everybody moves their prospects along at that same clip. So again, if you're looking at something like this for your business, you can set these numbers according to current performance, and you should be able to figure out this current performance pretty easily if you're at least close to the numbers and the way your company is currently performing. And then in the scenario we're talking about, 1 out of every 2 contracts that get submitted closes, or a 50% close rate, you're now looking at a company here that starts the revenue cycle with 4,000 visitors and ends up with 1 new client a month. And this is how simple this can be done. Baseline current performance into a model like this, and you'll uncover some incredible insights in terms of what you need to do. And I'm going to walk you through a little bit of that in a minute. Now, I also talked wanting to understand what desired performance is. And if you look at the model at the bottom, we basically work back from here. So in this case, this client told us, well, we would really like to get 4 new clients a month. Okay, no problem. In order to do that, let's back into those numbers. So if my close rate is going to stay the same, and we could argue maybe it could be improved, I now need 8 contracts a month submitted. And I just worked backwards from there. And you can see that the numbers are not significantly higher. So to go from 1 new client a month to 4 new clients a month, and that's a significant improvement. Look at the relatively modest adjustments that need to be made. We need to go from 4 to 6,000 visitors. Now that's not 4 to 40, it's 4 to 6. That's a doable number with some good SEO and good sourcing for website visitors. We need to go from 0.5% conversion rate to 1% conversion rate. So again, like modest improvements. You're talking about some additional content, some more strategic application of that content, perhaps a better website experience. And immediately you'll go from 20 new contacts to 60 new contacts. And again, if those contacts are mostly marketing qualified leads, you're going to go from 18 to 54 marketing qualified leads a month. And if our conversion rate of marketing qualified leads to sales qualified leads remains the same at 20%, we're now talking about 11 sales opportunities. Now, because I'm expecting us to do a better job converting and a better job educating and a better job connecting with these people who are visiting our website, I'm also expecting to see more people who are qualified by sales. Instead of a 75% sales qualified lead to sales opportunity, I'm expecting a 90%, meaning most of the people that reach out to us are ready to talk to sales and they are qualified to talk to sales. So you now talk about going from 3 to 10 sales opportunities a month. Again, I feel like we'll do a better job because the quality of the prospect is going to be better, taking them from sales opportunity into contract, which now gives you 8 contracts submitted a month. And with the same 50% close rate, you're looking at 4 new clients a month. And again, folks, this is how easy it is to map out the desired performance. And this really shows us what our end game is. To go from 1 client a month to 4 clients a month, these are the numbers we need to deliver. We can now back into these in some of the tactical deployment that I'm going to talk about in a minute. Let's keep going here. So how do we decide what tactics to use? This is where I want to leverage this model to help us design what marketing and sales tactics to deploy. So if we wanted to do a better job on visitors to the website and conversion rate, then we would drive marketing tactics focused on website visitors and lead generation. And by doing a little bit of a better job on that and taking these numbers from 4 to 6, instead 4 to 8, and in taking our conversion rate from 0.5 to 1, but from 0.5 to 1.5, look at the impact we can have on the number of new contacts we're getting. And that rolls all the way down through the revenue cycle. Remember, this is a quantitative model. These numbers are connected. And you end up, well, without having to improve the rest of the revenue cycle as we designed it, 7 new clients a month. So again, by exerting some energy on the front of the early stages of the revenue cycle, I can go from 4 to 7. Okay. Let's look at a slightly different scenario. By exerting some pressure and some tactics and some energy on the back end of the revenue cycle, by looking at sales improvement tactics focused on the sales process and closing deals, we can improve this to 6 new clients by driving a 70% close rate. So the same performance we modeled initially with your 10 sales opportunities can go from 4 to 7, from 4 to 6 by simply investing some time and energy on the back end of the revenue cycle. So you can see clearly how these numbers are connected, and you should be able to see clearly how applying the different tactics helps us drive very specific results in a quantitative way. Now, Some of you might be saying like, yeah, that makes a lot of sense, but how do I know what tactics to deploy? How do I know how much to invest in this? And this is where I wanted to spend just a few minutes trying to align investment and timing. This is very important. A lot of people come to us and they want the mansion on the right, and they're not really clear on what investment is required to get the mansion. But you do understand that the mansion is going to be more expensive than the more moderate house in the beginning and the small in the middle and the smaller house at the end. You have to look at your marketing programs and your expectations around revenue performance in the same way. If you have an aspiration for lofty revenue goals, be prepared to invest mansion level money and time and energy. If you're willing to have more modest goals, then it's reasonable to think you could come in with a more moderate program and moderate expectations and a slightly longer time horizon. If you have budget constraints, and a lot of people do, it's no problem. Progress can be made. Improvements can be delivered as long as you understand they're going to take longer, they're going to be smaller because the budget dictates how much you can put towards this. And I actually took a minute to illustrate this in a little more detail. Here are 3 generic programs that I put together with just some idea of the 3 different levels of investment and timing. So if you're looking at the small program, you're going to fix your messaging, you're going to build a new website. It's probably going to be a smaller website. You're going to look at conversion offers for all the buyer journey stages, but it'll probably just be a couple of those. Maybe we'll do some email marketing and some social media on a single platform. That's your modest plan. That's going to work for you. It's going to help you generate leads, but at a much slower clip than the medium or the large plan. If you stepped up to the larger plan, new messaging, a new bigger website, more conversion offers, emails twice a month, social media on 3 platforms. Now we're adding search engine optimization, paid social, paid search. We're going to enable chat for you. We're going to redesign the sales process, and we're going to implement some technology and drive some ongoing optimization. Everyone is going to agree that that amount of energy is going to require more investment, and it's going to produce more results over a shorter period of time. Step up into the larger plan, and I don't need to be redundant here, but by adding videos, a referral program, customer marketing, you're obviously going to see better results faster, and the lift is going to be more significant. So it just comes down to now understanding internally as an organization, what are we willing to invest? What are our expectations? Where do we want to be? How does this align with our goals? In some cases, you may have to lower your expectations around goals because of your budget. There's nothing wrong with that. That alignment is important. Again, if budget is less of an option, then great. Let's set lofty goals. Let's invest appropriately, and let's really drive some remarkable results in a short amount of time. So this is a conversation that you probably want to have internally with your portfolio managers, with your leadership team, and make sure that everyone is on the same page about what we're willing to invest and how long we're willing to wait for results. Now, the last part of this first storyline is your story. Again, I try to identify some things here that we see missing when companies come to us and are looking for help. And this is also one of the biggest things that are missing. Your company's story is critical to revenue generation. You're not going to generate revenue simply by investing in marketing tactics. If you're not saying something that is interesting, if your story is not different than your competitors, if your company is not remarkable in some way, if your story is not emotional and compelling and it's not simple enough to be delivered in 10 seconds, you're going to struggle. You're going to underperform. People buy emotionally. Everybody buys emotionally. If I'm looking for a new sofa for my house and I roll into the furniture store, the first thing I say is what? I love that sofa. It looks so great. I can feel it inside of me, how proud I'm going to be to have this in my house and how great it's going to look and how my friends are going to tell me what a beautiful sofa. Those are all emotional feelings. Your company has to connect with your prospects in a similar way. And this is not easy to do. This happens to be one of Square 2's superpowers. Other agencies are good at this as well, but you need to ask whoever is responsible for your story at your company or your companies, what are we saying that is compelling and remarkable? And if there isn't anything, you strongly should consider getting some help to create that. Without this, like I said, your program will languish regardless of how much you're investing in it. And then the other thing that's related to this and important, and we are going to spend some more time going into this in more detail, is you really have to understand your prospect's buyer journey. You really have to go deep on what their pains and challenges and issues are. If you're not able to connect with them on that level, they're not going to connect with you. There's a very sequential way in which people process information when they land on your website. As an example, the first thing they want to see is, do you do what they need? So that has to involve with you solving their pains. Do you do it in an interesting way? That's where the remarkable comes in. And who have you worked with before that I can look at and say, like, yeah, they're like me and they got a good experience, and I'm comfortable talking to this company a little bit more because they seem to do what I need done. That sequence happens very quickly. And if your website and your marketing materials or your sales reps cannot quickly connect with the prospects with their pain, cannot understand where they are in their buyer journey, cannot quickly discuss how you solve their pains and how you do it in a remarkable way, and share some proof, social proof on how you've done it for other people like them, again, no matter how much you invest in a marketing tactic, it's going to underperform. Again, this is not easy to do. I strongly recommend you getting some assistance with this, either internally or with an agency who can walk you through a framework that helps step you through a process that delivers this kind of messaging upgrades. But it is absolutely mission critical to driving month-over-month revenue growth. So with that, we kind of covered the strategy piece. I want to get into the selecting of the tactics, because I think that's equally important. And I want to talk a little bit about the buyer journey. Every single one of your prospects is on a journey, and your job is to identify that journey. And what I'm showing you here is the Cyclonic buyer journey framework. This is something that Square 2 created to help our clients understand the different stages of their prospect buyer journey, and to use this framework to map out specific marketing and sales tactics to influence this journey, and to use this framework to identify every single touch point within their prospect's buyer journey, and also go deep on the questions that prospects have. If we want to follow the thread of making decisions emotionally, you have people who are in these small hurricanes, and they're getting tossed about because they are influenced by so many things these days: friends, family, social, search, content, colleagues, peers. Like, people are constantly, we all know it. Hey, you should take a look at this. Hey, you should try that. Hey, I did this. You should take a look at it. Hey, this company's awesome. Look what they have to say. Hey, I read this article. Check it out. We're all exposed to so much content that we all live in these tiny hurricanes. It's your job as a marketing and salesperson is to manage your prospects through these hurricanes in a very efficient and effective way. And you do that with marketing and sales tactics. These touch points that I'm talking about should be very specifically designed to move someone from awareness to education, and education to consideration, and consideration to evaluation. The better you are at that, the better your sales and marketing is executing, and the easier it's going to be to help your company grow. Now, I want to dig into these a little bit so that everybody can understand them. So there are people right now who could potentially buy your products or services, and they are unaware of your company. Now, they may be aware of your company, but they may be unaware of your products or services. They may be unaware that they even have a problem in their business that you can help them with. We call people like this in pre-awareness stage. They're not looking for anything. They don't know they have pain. They don't know they have a problem, but it's possible they do, and they're unaware of it. This is typically where companies target prospects in account-based marketing programs. And that's why you can see this is color-coded as a marketing and a sales oriented stage. If you're running account-based marketing programs, then you're going to be talking to people who might not be aware that they actually have a problem, and your marketing has to be tuned into that. Once people are aware, well, now their reticular activation is turned on, and they're open to getting information about their issues. Now, awareness is different than education, because in education, they're proactive. And in awareness, they're reactive, meaning if I send them something and it tweaks a feeling, they might look at it, but they're not actively looking. Now, it's different than pre-awareness, where if I send them something, they don't even know they have a problem, they're deleting it. In awareness, they've decided that they might have an issue and they're open to education. In education, they are actively looking, they are searching, they are asking questions, they are researching, they're active in their buyer journey. And this is typically where people start to engage with companies from a marketing perspective. Awareness and education is generally where you can grab somebody's attention and pull them into your orbit. Now, consideration is a little further along. They've actually decided they have a problem. They actually decided they need help, and they are considering all of their options. If you want to use Square 2 as an example, this is typically where clients have decided, I need help with my marketing. I don't know if I want to hire somebody. I don't know if I want to hire an agency. I don't know if I want to take some classes or go to a conference, but they've realized the fact that they need help and they're considering their options. Once that consideration gets a little further down and they've decided which direction they want to go, they end up in evaluation stage. Again, to use the Square 2 analogy, they've decided they want to hire an agency. And now they're now looking at 3 agencies. That's the evaluation stage. And you can also see that evaluation is where sales and marketing come together again, marketing turning the opportunity over to sales, sales picking it up. Now, rationalization is where they get all of their questions answered. Decisions is where they decide what they're going to do. And delivery is equally important because you have to deliver great service if you want to keep the cycle flowing. Remember, this is a circular process here. Awesome delivery contributes to more people knowing about you and the cycle running faster and faster and faster. So you have to pay some attention to customer service as well. When it comes to the tactics, well, look at all the tactics we have here that need to be applied. There are tons of them, and different tactics stretch out over different parts of the buyer journey. So when it comes to thinking about what you're going to execute, make sure that you're executing tactics that are aligned with the area of the buyer journey and the revenue cycle that you're interested in applying the most pressure to. And remember, 1 + 1 = 3. I run into lots of people who tried one thing, it didn't work. They stopped it. They tried another thing, it didn't work. Please, folks, make sure you're doing as many things as possible, because that is really where you will get this 1 + 1 = 3 thinking. I know this was quick. If you're interested in more information on the buyer journey and some of the things we talked about, you can check out this book, Smash the Funnel. It's available on Amazon. So I want to talk about planning and executing campaigns. This is equally important in terms of getting these ideas out and having them start to generate leads. So we have these rhythms that I think are important. I want you to think about calendars, content, and campaigns. I want you to spend some time putting some time into your plans for ongoing optimization. Your website, your nurtures, your content, your paid ads, they all need optimization to be effective. I want to make sure you get the right resources on the projects, and I want to make sure you're open and understand what's involved with tracking and testing. So we're going to talk about each of these real quickly. People need rhythms, okay? We get up in the morning, we eat at certain times, we go to bed at night. Our bodies are biorhythmically connected to the planet. And I think you need to create similar rhythms when it comes to sales and marketing. The better you are at that, the easier it's going to be to execute. Typically, what we recommend is you look at 90-day chunks from a strategy perspective and 30-day chunks from a work and planning perspective. And then make sure that every week there's some review of the data and that everyone is aligned and focused on the same approach. This is going to allow you to kind of manage planning and execution in a tuned way. You can look at shorter sprints for work, but it seems to us, based on our experience, that 30 days allows you to do almost everything you need to do based on the resources that you have available to you. I also want you to think from a calendar perspective, because honestly, that's how your prospects are experiencing your marketing and sales effort. I want you to look visually and see what touches are planned for what groups and when. This is going to help you not over market. You don't want to send 4 emails to the same person on the same day. This will also allow you to plan out your work and stretch it out over a period of time, and also organize across different segments and channels. Orchestration is one of the most important aspects to execution. You want to make sure that everything is really flawlessly delivering the right story to your clients. As an example, this is a calendar that Square 2 uses to look at all the things we're doing and all the people we're touching. You can see Friday is generally a light day for us because we find less people engaged on Fridays, but the color coding shows what targets we're going after, what channels we're turning on those days, what touches prospects are getting. This calendar view of your marketing is a really good way to make sure that things are smoothly and appropriately distributed so you're not overly marketing to any particular segment. You also need to make sure that there's plenty of time planned each month for optimization. It is one of the things missing from most marketing and sales executions that we run into. You should be looking at what's working and not working, and you should be looking at them weekly and making adjustments to those executions on a weekly basis as well. This is typically owned by people in marketing or sales operations because optimization is something that happens all the time. It's not really campaign specific. It's more in terms of ongoing. What are we doing? What's working? What's not working? What needs to be shuttered? What needs to be doubled down on? What needs additional changes? And there are so many areas where this can impact performance. It can become a very monumental piece of the puzzle. And that's why we're seeing more and more dedicated people to this, people in marketing operations whose job it is to drive these kinds of improvements on a monthly basis. I would also tell you here as a little side note, try to ignore industry averages and really focus on month-over-month improvements. I don't really care what Google says a good landing page conversion rate is. If you're converting at 20%, work to get it to 25%. Once you get to 25%, work to get it to 30%, and just keep making month-over-month improvements on that. We really want to make sure that there's alignment across your entire organization too. It's very difficult to drive revenue if it's only a marketing related objective. It needs to be a marketing, sales, and service related objective. And you really need to have leadership team buy-in at the C level, sales leadership, sales reps, marketing leadership. And then you need all those people on the marketing team, in the sales team, and in the customer service team to all be on the same page in terms of what you're trying to accomplish and how you're trying to accomplish it. And I also want you to do some more experiments. A lot of people are afraid to execute experiments. What if they fail? Am I going to be embarrassed? Am I going to get in trouble? The big takeaway on this experiment line item here is don't be afraid to fail. Failed experiments tell you exactly what not to do again, and they can really inform what you're going to be working on as opposed to not working on going forward. So I highly recommend testing and experiments as a big part of your ongoing optimization efforts. So let's talk about this data a little bit. Everybody has access to data these days. These are a handful of dashboards that we pulled off of some of our HubSpot clients. Everybody has access to data. I want to tell you today that the data is not the secret. What I really want you guys to lean into as part of the takeaways here is the idea that we need to look inside the data and find out what insights are in there. So what is the data telling us that can inform our action plans? It's not only what's not working, but why isn't it working? What could we do to fix it? What did we try that worked or didn't work? This is a difficult piece of the puzzle to deliver. Finding these insights take lots and lots of experience. And this might be a situation where maybe your internal team is not equipped to uncover the insights in a productive way. And this might be a situation where you go to an outside team who does have more wide arching experiences and say, hey, can you take a look at what we're doing and dig into our data and tell us what you think we might be looking to do better? So these insights are challenging. My suggestion is if you're having trouble uncovering them, ask for some help. And I wanted to give you a couple of examples. So here's an insight. Our most visited website page generates the fewest leads when compared to other pages. So it's really interesting. The action associated with that insight is run a series of tests with different offers on the pages to push up conversion. So, as we're going to test different offers on the pages, we might see those highly trafficked pages start to push up from a lead gen perspective. Our sales process slows down and the conversion rate is low right after sales qualified lead stage. An action there could be review the sales process and refine the process for qualified prospects, removing some friction from that particular part of the process. And you could accelerate that conversion process there very effectively. And then last but not least, if your customers aren't completing online reviews, even when you're asking them, well, you could run some tests for them too in terms of trying some incentives or maybe doing some personalized outreach. Sometimes people just don't respond to the automated requests for reviews. Again, the insight drives the actions that are going to improve performance. And then the last couple minutes before we go on to our live audit, let me talk a little bit about technology. It's just too hard to execute all of the stuff we've been talking about without some help. This slide here, believe it or not, is a list of all of the marketing and sales technology products out there in the marketplace. And this was from April of 2020. I'm sure today it's many more than 8,000 products. It is almost impossible to navigate the technology environment. So what I'd like you to do is think about it in a more simplistic way. You're going to need some platform technology. That's kind of like basics, table stakes. And what I identified for you here are some HubSpot products that represent the platform technology. Marketing Hub for marketing, Sales Hub for sales execution, CRM for central database for all of your prospects and customers, the CMS to house your website, and the Service Hub to take care of customers. On top of this, you can start looking at the buyer journey like we've been talking about all along and apply additional tech products as whether they're fit with requirements for you or not. For instance, if you're looking for a lot of additional visitors and you want to really lean into search engine optimization, SEMrush or Moz might be a couple of additional technology products that you might want to consider. If you're really going to lean into video, then Vidyard. If you're really going to lean into email, then 7sense might be a technology product that you would want to consider bolting on top of your platform technology. So again, this might help you kind of navigate the challenging world associated with technology and give you a bit of a strategy concept or framework for you to start thinking about your portfolio companies or even your own individual company and how can I apply some of this technology. And again, if you want any guidance or direction around this, we are more than happy to sit down with you and talk about your company, your portfolio companies, and how technology could be applied accordingly. So if I'm going to wrap up, a couple of things for you to remember. Strategy is more important than the tactics. Don't skip it or shortcut it. You need to know where you're going in order to get there. That's where the revenue cycle comes in. Have a real honest conversation around aligned investment and expected results. If you have lofty goals, be prepared to invest a budget on those goals. Plan and orchestrate your tactics and look at cross-channel for sure. Create the rhythms in the execution so you and your team can manage it appropriately. And make sure you lean into that data to make some really smart decisions going forward and work hard to uncover those insights buried in your data. And then consider some technology to help make this execution efficient. It's going to allow you to drive results in a much more effective way. So I do have a free prize inside for people who have stayed this long and have watched this all the way to the end. So at Square 2, we are more than happy to take a look at one of your portfolio companies, no obligation. So if you simply email eric@square2marketing.com and put in the subject line, review my portfolio company, one of us will be more than happy to hop on a call with you, talk a little bit about your company, what you're trying to accomplish, what you've done, where you want to go. And then we'll come back and give you some recommendations, no obligation. Take them, implement them yourselves, take them, hire someone else to do it. That's completely up to you. But we're more than happy to help you with that. And if you did like some of the content here, where we have a webcast called What's Wrong with Revenue, we do it every week and it tackles some of the challenges that we've been talking about here today. If you want to check it out, you can go to the square2marketing.com website. At the bottom in the footer, there's a link called What's Wrong with Revenue, and you can take a look at the live cast. You can subscribe to it. You can check out all the shows. You can even submit questions for us to answer for you live on the show every Wednesday. And if you're more a YouTube kind of person, head on over to YouTube. And if you type in Square 2 Marketing or What's Wrong with Revenue, you should find it, or you can click on the link here and it'll take you right to the show. I really appreciate everybody participating. KA, Julie, I really appreciate you stepping in and helping with the case study panel. I think it's been a great event. I hope everyone who listened to it or is going to listen to it on demand also feels the same way. Again, thanks so much for attending. You guys have a good rest of your day, and we'll talk to you all soon.
Thank you.